Proverbs chapter 5 is about avoiding the immoral woman. So this chapter is not necessarily talking about an actual woman. So the immoral woman is actually a metaphor for sin. So it's basically saying avoiding sin. It starts off by saying, "My son, pay attention to my wisdom. Listen carefully to my wise counsel. Then you will show discernment, and your lips will express what you've learned. For the lips of the immoral woman are sweet as honey, and her mouth is smoother than oil. But in the end, she is as bitter as poison, as dangerous as a double-edged sword. Her feet go down to death. Her steps lead straight to the grave. For she cares nothing about the path to life. She staggers down a crooked trail and doesn't realize it. So now, my sons, listen to me. Never stray away from what I am about to tell you. Stay away from her. Don't go near the door of her house." So what this verse is saying is, don't even entertain, don't even get close to it, saying, how far can I get to it? How close can I get to it? Because it says here, stay away from her, don't go near the door of her house. By you going near the door of a house of someone, you're going in there, you're making the trip, you're making the decision of entertaining that decision of doing something. So the verses 15 through 19 begin to speak about marriage, about being faithful to your spouse, about not entertaining, not looking at anybody else besides your spouse, by making sure that you're being satisfied by your spouse and by no one else. And then it continues on saying, "For the Lord sees clearly what a man does, examining every path he takes. An evil man is held captive by his own sins. They are ropes that catch and hold him. He will die for lack of self-control. He will be lost because of his great foolishness." So we got to remember that this whole chapter is about avoiding sin. And this chapter ends with that. He will die for lack of self-control. He will be lost because of his great foolishness. Sin is a decision. Following God is a decision. It all comes down to us making that decision to follow God, to follow His commands, to follow the things that He has told us to follow. This reminds me of a verse in 2 Corinthians. It's in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 8 through 9. And this is when Paul is praying to God, saying, "God, please take this weakness away from me. Take this hardship away from me." He was dealing with something and he considered it his weakness. And he prayed to God to take it away. But here is the response that God gave him. It says, "My grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness. So now I am glad to boast about my weakness so that the power of Christ can work through me. That's why I take pleasure in my weaknesses and in the insults, hardships, persecutions, and troubles that I suffer for Christ. For when I am weak, then I am strong." And that is the mentality that we should be taking when it comes to sin. Sin is very hard to not do. We're all imperfect. We all fall short of God's glory. We all do. We all have to deal with sin. But it comes down to those moments of weakness when we feel like we just can't say no to sin. That is when we need to reach out to God, because God is made strong in our weaknesses. Then we will be able to stay away from the immoral women or stay away from sin. So I encourage you guys to cry out to Him whenever you guys are feeling weak, because that is when He is made strong. He will help you get through it. Not because of your ability, because of His ability. Come back tomorrow for chapter 6 of Proverbs.